Season 17 is one of the most universally hated seasons Sea of Thieves has ever seen. People hate it more than the season it gave us sitting. So what went wrong? Because as a whole package, what we're looking at right now as a full season is entirely different to its first month of release. And that first month is where a lot of the disconnect came from. This is because Season 17 implemented Rare's new update cadence strategy, splitting seasons into 3 months called acts. And when you're told, hey, here's the new season, and are met with a glorified cargo run voyage, well, it's obvious why community sentiment was at an all-time low, even if the new kegs are insanely fun. But if we take a step back all the way to Season 15, well, you start to notice something. This 3-act update cadence has been implemented since the season with the new big old sharks, and has been running this way all the way to present day. I mean, technically, I actually started in Season 14, but we don't talk about that. Now, with this in mind, I don't believe the update cadence is the issue. Having something new to look forward to every month has breathed a lot of life into this game, as there's something always on the horizon to look forward to, even if at times it's seagulls and lizards. No, the issue lies deeper than this new seasonal strategy. In fact, the strategy itself is fine. They just opened Season 17 with essentially cool to do. We were given a new faction to interact with, except there was hardly anything to do with them. No levels to grind, hardly any commendations to work through, and a bunch of new treasures that can only be sold to this new faction, making them feel entirely separate from the rest of the game. And to top it all off, these new treasures were replacing legacy content for the season by removing regular shipwrecks, along with removing the Reaper chest and bounty from the Fort of the Damned. It was enough to make the veteran player base question what the hell Rare was planning. I mean, imagine if they had led Season 15 with pigs. You complete a fort and it's just... This is the issue with Season 17 and why people hate it. But I think this season redeems itself, because despite the first month's shallow offerings of any real content, beneath the surface, something was brewing, in the form of a mystery relating to the mysterious client of the smugglers. I, however, paid zero attention to this for the first 2 months of the season, because I just want to shoot pirates and I don't want to read. Now, the second month, or Act 2 of the season, saw the addition of a new time-limited competitive voyage. The idea here is that the second act of every season going forward will have a time-limited event to engage players, and I really like this idea, even if it still needs ironing out a bit. Conceptually, what we have here is the evolution of the Skull of Siren Song voyage, and with this new voyage being time-limited in nature, it did see players actually squabble over the prize treasure of the voyage, netting the winning players nearly 200,000 in gold. There is another issue here though, because unlike the Skull of Siren Song, there's no real reward tied to this voyage aside from a lot of gold. Well, at least nothing players actually want. Sure, 200,000 is a lot of gold, but we need a cosmetic reward tied to these too. And I swear to God, trinkets do not count as rewards. If we were required to complete 10 of these competitive voyages in the space of Act 2 to unlock something special, like Briggsy's Mask for instance, we may have seen this event take off a lot more. But unfortunately, after the first week of it being live, in my experience, it was kind of left untouched, which is a shame because what we were given in terms of gameplay was wonderful. It forced players to interact, fight, scheme, and be sneaky, and it created a hotspot for PvP around the central location of the voyage, the now Reaper-occupied Royal Crest Fortress. And it's here we see again the story of the season progressing further. Flameheart has taken control of Royal Crest Fortress, turning it into a home for obsidian skeletons and a selection of fine art. I'll be honest, I had no idea these boneheads would enjoy art. Anyway, one of these pieces of art is of the utmost importance to the smuggler's mysterious client, as the story builds up to the next big reveal in the final act of the season. But the time-limited heist voyage wasn't the only thing we saw added during the second month's update. We also got the first part of what I'm going to refer to as Season 17 will be looked back as a great season agenda. The sweats have literally been begging for this for years. Finally, I can observe my tools. You see, Sea of Thieves has been capped at 90 FOV FOV since its launch, and although many of its players are used to it, the demand for an increase in FOV has been going on for years now, and thank God too, because I literally tuned into an Hourglass streamer a while back, and they were playing in windowed mode to stretch the resolution and get a higher FOV. It looked awful. Anyway, the final month, technically 2 months because of the next season's delay, is easily the strongest part of the season in terms of gameplay, rewards, and story. Because not only did it add one of the most enjoyable world events this game's ever seen, the story is also poised to actually do something. Now, the Reaper Fortresses are as close to perfection a world event has been in forever, and not just because they're fun to fight other players over. No, there's also a story being told at these fortresses, regardless of your presence there or not, and that's what sets it apart from previous world events. A war is happening between 2 opposing factions, the Reapers guarding the fortress, while the Phantoms of the Dark Brethren siege the island, fighting both players and the skeletons guarding the vault. This is all happening regardless of your involvement. For the first time in a long time, the seas are feeling inhabited. As you sail toward the event, you can hear the cannons of war, the screams of the damned as the island suffers a barrage of attacks from the Ghost Fleet. And this Ghost Fleet doesn't just target players, it targets the very island itself, unleashing all sorts of phantom cannonballs onto the rickety woodwork of the fortress. It sets a scene and it makes a statement that Sea of Thieves will progress regardless of your involvement. And for the first time since Adventures back in 22, the world feels lived in. On top of this, for the final act of Season 17, a special event with increased loot rarity is taking place within these new fortresses, netting players one of the most insane treasure vaults this game's ever seen. This update is by far the strongest showing of Season 17. I've seen full servers of ships fighting it out over these fortresses for a chance at the Mega Stash, and I've suffered some heartbreaking losses at these fortresses over on twitch.tv/Toxie Sinclaire. But there's still some work to be done to make these events better, because one of the biggest issues I've seen with the new Reaper Fortresses is the raided variant of the treasure vault. This vault is so lackluster that some players have lost all interest in doing them for fear that the vault will look like this. And I don't blame them, because when fights look like this, only to come out on top and receive that. Yeah, that's worse than losing. Now, personally, I'm a big fan of the diving to voyages mechanic added in Season 11, but we're starting to really see one of its biggest flaws is how this mechanic interacts with world events. Because not only does it ruin the rewards found at world events, it also messes with newer players' expectations for the types of rewards that can be found in them. To fix this, I propose that diving to world events needs to be adjusted, specifically by removing the option to dive to most world events, and instead allow players the option to dive to just 2 world events, the original Skeleton Fortresses along with the Ashen Winds. And in doing so, these 2 events should be removed from the naturally spawning list of world events. This will give newer players a better idea of what type of rewards to expect from each event they choose to do, while also removing some of these easier legacy content from the natural cycle of the game, while still keeping them accessible for those who want to do them. It's a win-win, I think. Just please, for the love of humanity, mark the key to the vault on the map, please. I'm begging you. I can't go through this again.
We don't have a key. Maybe...
That's what someone who would have the key would say. Anyway, let's take another look at the Smugglers faction and the story they tell with their introduction to the seas. As I mentioned earlier, they only tease a story with their introduction, but as the season progresses, we start to learn more about this mysterious group, culminating in a very important, if not quite obvious, twist to the current storyline. That one Dark Brethren fan on Twitter is screaming right now. This would be where the season ends, but with Season 18 being delayed, we have one final update to Season 17, one of the most important quality of life updates this game's seen, second only to the FOV increase. And my second part of the Season 17 will be looked back as a great season agenda, the return of Quick Swap. Back in Season 10, Rare made the decision to remove Quick Swap, a technique to shoot 2 guns back to back at a faster rate. And the trick to this technique was simply sprinting after shooting and swapping. But this technique's removal had some unintended negative effects on the gunplay, punishing players for switching and sprinting after shooting. Virax made a video about this back when Season 10 launched, going into detail exactly how the gunplay had changed and why it feels clunky.
I want to highlight a few more examples of shot timing. Here I sprint and I'm able to shoot twice in 1.78 seconds. Next I shoot without sprinting and I'm able to shoot 2 shots in 1.55 seconds. Now let's watch an example where I sprint like I did on the island. As I push an imaginary enemy below deck, I try to fire my blunderbuss, only to get double animation because I sprinted after swapping. This time I let my weapon fully animate before sprinting, then go down to fire. 2.27 seconds. A full second faster.
I recommend you check out his video to get a better understanding as to why quickswap coming back isn't exactly bad for the game, as he goes into incredible depth to show you just why it isn't a problem. I know some players are a little upset that quickswap is back, but gun switching is now at a universal speed, regardless of if you do the technique or not. You just have to hit your shots. Season 17 might have started on rocky shores, but I believe that 1 year from now, we'll look back on this season, the groundwork it laid out, along with the 2 massively wanted quality of life additions, and think, wow, we had it good. I mean, people have been saying this about Season 5 for some reason, and that season added sitting. Thanks for watching. I know this is a bit different from my usual videos, but here we are. What a world. Tales of Getting Booty are still happening, just expect more videos like this too. Bye!